Hi everyone and welcome to the YouTube version of our character profile on Curly Watts.
That's right.
I hadn't forgotten. I was going to give him some grand introduction, but I mean, the man introduces himself. Everybody knows who Curly Watts is. Iconic Corrie character who went from humble bin man to Lord of all Freshcos, or was it Better Buys, or a bit of both, over the course of 20 years on Coronation Street. And the reason why we have chosen to upload his profile to a YouTube channel is because coming up this weekend, we've got an interview with the man behind the specs himself, Mr. Kevin Kennedy. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Very, very exciting. Now, this was taken from way back on episode 58 of the podcast. So we've only been going for a year or so when we talked about Curly the first time. And I don't think my feelings about him have changed since. Still enjoyed the character then. But we've been seeing a bit more of him on the ITV3 episodes, haven't we? Well, I've been watching it.
The classic Corrie episodes.
Yes, you've been walking through the lounge.
He's been trying to woo Raquel.
He's been trying to woo lots of ladies over the years.
He's got loves to try her.
Well, he's just been sacked from Better Buys for sexual harassment as well. But yeah, as you say, dear. You don't try, you don't get.
I don't think it's always applicable to romance.
Okay,
but
fine.
Luckily it's not real. So.
Luckily it is not real. So here we go. This is our episode 58 character profile of Curly Watts. Enjoy. It's character profile time. This week, like we said earlier, we're going to be having a look at Curly Watts.
Curly Watts?
Yeah, Norman Watts was his actual name. Called Curly because...
he curled his lip.
No.
A lot.
Because he had straight hair, of course. It was one of these ironic nicknames.
Oh, they've got it them up north, aren't they?
Yeah, like Fat Brenda, maybe actually be really thin, that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's my theory.
Yeah, it was his last appearance 10 years ago this week, so we thought we'd have a look back at a character that I don't know if he'll ever link in any current storyline ever again, so
no,
we've linked him through that way. So Curly was born on the 4th of July 1962.
Born on the 4th of July.
Oh yeah, Independence Day and all that stuff. His parents were Arthur and Eunice Watts.
Eunice, do you reckon that's going to start coming back in?
Eunice?
Yeah.
No.
Eunice.
Not unless there's somebody on X Factor called Eunice. He married, of course, Raquel Wollstonecombe in 1995, and Emma Taylor, less well remembered, in 2000. He's got 2 children, despite being such a loser in love. Alice Watts was born in 1997, and then Ben Watts in 2001. He first appeared on the 11th of July 1983, which was a mere week after I appeared on this world.
On this world?
Yes, I wasn't on Coronation Street there. And he last appeared on the 1st of September 2003. He has been in 1,569 episodes, which is an awful lot.
Quite a lot.
It makes him the 24th most featured character ever on the show.
Amazing.
I know, but he will very, very, very soon, in fact, like probably next week, be caught up by Fizz and Roy, who are snapping at his heels in the episode count.
I'm sure they will overtake him.
I think there's a very good chance of that happening. So, he was played by Kevin Kennedy. He left in 2003, and you started watching it in like 2002, so you wouldn't have seen very much of Curly. Do you remember?
I remember Emma.
Yeah.
More than I remember Curly.
I remember when I first started watching, I used to really like Curly because he was like a bit of a nerd, no good with the women. I thought, almost saw a little bit of myself in him.
Oh, no, darling, not possible.
His history before the street is apparently he worked as a paperboy for Rita.
Well, she has got a fleet of anonymous paperboys, doesn't she?
Yeah, all these paperboys that we never see. He was one of them. He got 8 O-levels and 2 A-levels, and I think that almost makes him the most highly qualified character to ever appear in Coronation Street. Apart from... No, maybe it actually is, I don't know. He wanted to be an RAF pilot, but alas, he was rejected due to his poor eyesight. Very well known for his glasses. Although he was very clever by street standards, he turned down a place at university to earn money working as a bin man. An honourable profession indeed.
You earn a lot of money being a bin man.
Do you?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, well, there we go then. Should have done it myself.
I think you'd have better hours. You'd have to wait. Probably have to get up later as well.
1983 was when he first came in. His parents moved to Crewe, so
Lovely place.
Yes, I'd never been, but he decided he didn't want to. He preferred working on the bins in Weatherfield, so he lodged with Emily Bishop, and those
And
two
how
were
old was
always
he
quite close.
this time?
Oh, what was it? 1983, and he was born in 1964, so he was a mere 19-year-old,
Okay.
roughly, when he came in.
So
89.
Emily likes the young men to lodge with her. I imagine she's got some
She
strategically placed peepholes.
Emily will open her doors for anybody.
I'm sure. In
She's a good Christian
1984,
woman.
in 1984, he became friends with Terry and Kevin.
Yes, they're like a little threesome.
Those two wholesome men.
I think, and I don't know because I never really watched. I've seen a little bit of it back then, but they were in something I've read compared to like the new Ina Sharples and cronies in the Snug, because those three kind of took over the Snug, and it was like three of them heads together.
So who's the current one of those then? Steve, Lloyd, and Eileen.
Yeah, I don't think it really exists at the moment. That's why I want there to be something like that in there again.
Yeah.
Sylvia should have
But
done that.
were Terry, Kevin, and Curly ever quite as?
No.
No,
I don't think so.
so.
No. Now, all the way through this, when I was making my notes about Curly, he's actually had loads of girlfriends for somebody who's such unlucky in love, and a lot of them may have been only flings or for a little while, but he's not had so much bad luck with the ladies. 1984, we saw him date Elaine Pollard, who Terry set him up with because he thought that she was as weird as Curly and they were a good match. But actually, she grew tired of him and found he was too boring.
Aww.
Yeah. Also in 1984, he hit the headlines when he claimed to have seen a UFO through his telescope, and that got him some attention from the girls as well.
Well, who wouldn't rush?
They all wanted to see Curly's telescope.
Yeah.
His extending telescope.
Yeah.
He had a thing that was one of his little quirks. That's right.
What, that he believed in UFOs?
No, that he liked astronomy.
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 That astronomy from Australia.
Yes, or something like that. In 1985, he shared a room with Kevin for a few months after the Websters moved to Southampton. Bill and Debbie Webster went down to live in Southampton. Who can blame them? It's lovely here. I've never seen them around though.
No,
they must live on the other side of the city or something. So Kevin moved into Emily's place with Curly, but by May that year, he'd grown fed up of Curly's 4:30 start, so he could go and do the bins, and he moved in with Hilda instead at number 13. Curly started a removal business called Cheap and Cheerful with Terry, having bought one of Mike's vans for £800 and renting the builder's yard from Rita, and I assume that was after Len Fairclough died. And that was what he started doing full-time in 1986, gave up the bins and gave his full attention to Cheap and Cheerful, and Emily was their bookkeeper, so she had a bit of use back then, 30 years ago, not totally useless like she is now.
Aww.
Tragedy struck in 1987. Terry, who'd have thought this, ran off with a mate's wife.
No, but he's a sterling chap.
He left Curly in the lurch. So he was like, oh, fine, that's the end of that then. So he decided, actually, I'm quite clever, actually. I'm going to enroll in business studies course in Granston Tech. He also, that year, girlfriend number 2 was the show's first regular black character, Shirley Armitage. I think she'd been in it since like 1985 as a very, very infrequent. But yeah, she was more prominent when she was going out with Curly, I think. According to Bill Podmore, who's the producer at the Times memoirs, there were loads of letters written in because people didn't agree that Curly should have been going out with a black girl.
That's terrible, isn't it?
Only 30 years ago. Yeah, no less than 30 years ago. It's incredible.
It's horrible, isn't it?
Yeah. And that kind of led to the first racism storyline on the street.
It can't possibly have been as good as the one we've just had.
There was no Play the White Man there. No. Everyone was saying Play the White Man back in 1988.
And it probably was nothing to do with the storyline.
Yeah. He rented the corner shop flat with Shirley, but Emily was aghast at this because they weren't married. Not because they were a different race, but Alf Roberts was the one who was like, I can't have this mixed race couple living above my shop.
Alf.
A councillor as well, mayor of Weatherfield. Yeah, so Emily supported Curly once she started realising what a bigger Alf was.
And both sets of parents also disapproved.
Yeah. God, the 80s. Later that year, he angered Mike by writing a highly critical report on his factory for his course. I think he compared it to a Victorian sweatshop.
Didn't he also then end up giving that to
Ken,
who wrote a piece?
Yeah,
I'm starting to put together.
You're remembering all this Corrie history and stuff. Well done.
I'm going to be an expert. I'm going to get an honorary degree in this, probably. Don't ask me about geography, though.
What was next? 1989. Shirley, the lovely girl, had organised a 1-year going out party with Curly. Shirley and Curly. It rhymes, doesn't it? Storyline titles we could have had with that.
Yeah.
Curly had an exam the next day, so he threw his friends out. That's the sort of
exactly
thing
you with what you
I would do that. I can see Roy doing that as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, she realised that
she could never be his intellectual equal.
No.
So she left him.
Yeah.
And he had to move in with the Duckworths.
Yeah, 'cause he couldn't afford the rent themselves. That was always quite fun watching Curly and the Duckworth together, like all this hapless trio. He passed his course though, in that he became an assistant manager at Better Buys. So that was the supermarket of the time.
Mm-hmm.
Under Reg Holdsworth, Gemma's favourite character from the past, who she's never seen in an episode, but the actor
nevertheless
rubbed her up the wrong way.
Yeah. Vera feels betrayed when Curly writes a poor review of her progress at the store.
Yes, he has to do performance management or something, and he
why did he do that?
Honest.
You're supposed to lie about your friends. You're supposed to say, "Oh, excellent, deserves a pay rise." That's what I do for you.
Oh, thanks. 1990, he started dating. So this is girlfriend number 3, Kimberly Taylor. I remember this from the classic Coronation Street episodes. I quite like Kimberly. She was a meek little checkout girl, and her parents are these devout Christians, and he unwittingly found himself engaged to her because he was like he wanted to make his intentions of I want to be with your daughter, and don't be, I'm not going to dump her or anything, I'm not going to treat her badly, and the mum thought that meant that he was going to marry her, so she throws herself into helping prepare this wedding that Curly didn't actually want, and he did not get on very well with this mum at all. She kind of disliked him for trying to seduce her daughter. In 1991, he was basically started openly criticising Kimberly's mum in front of her. So Kimberly broke off the engagement and requested a transfer from Better Buys. But Curly then tried to stop it happening because he was kind of a bit stalkerish and madly in love with this Kimberly, even though he hated her mum. And then he discovered, after she'd left him, that she was not only dating, but had slept with her cousin. And she wouldn't sleep with Curly because she wasn't brought up like that.
Keep it in the family.
Yeah, so her cousin Adrian is who she'd been bedding. And that this was the time when Raquel was in the programme, and she was having this date with Curly, and he just wouldn't shut up about Kimberly and Adrian.
That sounds like Chesney.
It's just like Chesney. There's the link to this week's episodes, everybody.
Everyone's favourite miserable guy.
Yeah.
Curly Watts.
Yeah, Chesney is a little bit of Curly, isn't it? Yeah. Business and everything. Curly went and attacked Adrian at his work, so he ended up with 2 hours in the police station, and then he started getting really mad, and he called out in the middle of a crowd of Better Buys that Kimberly was a Jezebel, and he went a little bit insane, and he transferred her to Bolton, so that was the end of that for a little while.
Harsh.
He then moved into number 7 with Angie Freeman, who was not girlfriend number 4.
But they did sleep together after they got drunk.
Yeah, they were more friends that they slept together, as you do sometimes.
Yeah, friends with benefits.
Yeah, but she made it very clear that that was it. So I think she was, she didn't fall for... She saw Curly as the geek he was.
Gross. Curly's girlfriend Raquel was wooed away to London with a modelling contract.
Sad.
But she comes back.
Oh yeah, that was why Curly was getting drunk. He was sad that Raquel had been wooed away to London, so yeah, he got drunk and then slept with Angie. There we go.
Passes the time.
Yeah, but she was back before the end of the year, Raquel, because the modelling didn't quite work out.
In 1992, he buys a number 7 from Rita and joins the Cupid Arrows Introduction Bureau,
Yeah.
posing as Gerald Murphy.
I think they should have kept the same dating agency
Yeah.
that Jack and Vera had used, the Bill and Coo. That would have been a nice little throwback. That was 10 years previously. Oh no, 9 years previously. Yeah, he for some reason he went under this name of Gerald Murphy, and he agreed a date with somebody who also had a pseudonym, and it turned out to be Kimberly back. They believed it to be fate that they were reunited that way, and they got engaged properly to each other. But by then, Kimberly was more assertive, and Curly let her know that she wouldn't be wearing the trousers in that relationship.
Oh dear.
Yeah, and to prove that he was the one in charge, he spent £2,000, which is a lot of money back in those days, converting the third bedroom into an observatory. And she dumped him after she realised he was more in love with his telescope than with her.
It's an age-old story, isn't it?
Yeah, boys and their telescopes.
In 1993, he becomes manager after Reg is promoted.
Yeah, so Reg is off, the area manager or something.
And Maud Grimes reads his palm and tells him he has already met his future wife at work. So he decides to pursue assistant manager Elaine and blocks her transfer to
Google. I don't know where that is. Ghoul, apparently. Or maybe
you just spelt pool wrong.
Or maybe that's actually probably true. Maybe it is pool. It definitely said Ghoul on Corriepedia, but now you come to think of it, I don't know if Ghoul is actually
Ghoul
a place.
doesn't sound like a real place.
Let's call it pool.
She gets annoyed because she was only sleeping with him to get a promotion.
Poor Curly. Unlucky in love. He also ended up in bed with Maureen that Christmas, who was engaged to Reg. So this is like girlfriend 5, 6 I now.
Saucy minx here.
I know, Curly was a bit of a slag.
Yeah. In 1994, when Elaine is made area manager, she files a sexual harassment case against Curly, who gets sacked.
Yeah, and I think it turned out then that Kimberly had filed sexual harassment against him as well.
Yeah.
He was just a guy in need of some love.
Michael, no.
You can see how these things get misconstrued.
Okay, right. He instead decides to get a job managing the food store's Super Scooper and tries to impress his bosses by convincing Raquel to pretend to be engaged to him. And then that leads to them getting engaged for real. But she is secretly in love with Des Barnes.
Oh, the cad.
Curly combines his love of stars with his love of Raquel and names a star after her for Christmas.
That was so
So
sweet.
everyone knows that's all just a hoax.
I remember that happening. That's one of these things back in 1994 that some of the very little bits of that year I remember. It's a long time ago. And I do remember him naming the star after Raquel.
It's all a crock, it's not true.
I was like, how old was I then? 11? And I think like my young little, not even teenage ways was kind of like, I just thought that Curly and Raquel were the utterly perfect relationship, and I think I was a little bit...
So even though you know that true love means you name a star after somebody, you haven't named a star after me.
And it's a good job, because if I had named a star after you, we'd have got to this point of doing our podcast about Curly, and you'd been like, you just copied Curly.
Yeah, I would have done.
Yeah, but that was really, really sweet when he named a star after her. But yeah, she really loved Des. 1995, Raquel admitted to Curly that she still loved him. Falling star.
Well, maybe he rips the little star certificate up.
Maybe.
Maybe he renamed
Nobody
the star
actually believes that.
Raquel the harlot.
I want to... How do you... Naming star after people, how does that work?
It doesn't
Because,
work.
like... Doesn't it? Do you
No.
not actually name a star after somebody?
Somebody just gives you a bit of paper that says star A384 6 Zeta ZY is now called Raquel.
Do you think they have lots of names as well?
I'm sure they
It's
do.
called
It's like
Raquel
buying.
and Sharon and...
It's like buying
Teresa.
land on the moon. Nobody owns it. Nobody can sell it to you.
Yeah. Nice gesture, though. An enraged Curly, after that, started trashing the Super Scooper's shop. He had the anger management problems, really, didn't he? And he was promptly sacked from that job. Reg took pretty on him, though, and by then he was manager at Furman's Freezers and gave Curly an assistant manager's job, so that was quite a nice, easy ride for him. He started seeing Anne Malone, who is one of the shop workers, and that name will certainly ring a bell for some of our listeners because of her interesting way that she died that we'll find out about in a minute. He defended Raquel when Leo Furman, who was the son of Eric Furman of Furman's Freezers, tried to rape her. Later that year, he married Raquel after she proposes to him following another night with Des. which he says was nothing more than a one-night stand. So she'd been with Des. Des was like, no, I'm not interested in you. She runs to Curly, says, oh, Curly, do you remember when you said you'd marry me? Let's do it. And I think if I remember rightly, by the end of the episode, they were married. I think there was like a time jump in the episode. I'm sure I'm remembering that rightly. But I was so pleased when Curly and Raquel got married, because that was probably like the first wedding I even saw on Coronation Street when I was growing up. It's got a special place in my heart, that one. And then they went off and had the honeymoon on a cruise, and that was, I think, the very first spin-off DVD of Curly and Raquel on the cruise. And during that time, Raquel admitted the reason for this hasty proposal. She was just on the rebound from Des, pretty much. They were never... It's weird because like they weren't properly suited to each other, and she never really loved him. She couldn't love him as much as he loved her or even fantasized after her. But I think they're just a very well remembered Coronation Street couple. But like by the end of the next year, they'd split up. Curly had become a member of the Square Dealers earlier in the year, which was some kind of 1996, which was some kind of
local business association.
Freemasons, yeah, business association. Meanwhile, Raquel was taking up aromatherapy, went on a course, came back, totally different woman, because she was such a wonderful character, because she embodied the blonde bimbo tart with a heart. She was utterly dense.
She was lovable but stupid, wasn't she?
Yeah, but when she came back off that course, she was sort of
changed woman.
She's changed woman, very, very assertive and dominant, and she was just like, yeah, I've been offered a job in Kuala Lumpur. I'm going to go for it. Bye-bye. I was so sad when that happened.
These little teenage heartbreak.
It did. A dejected Curly let number 7 to Samantha Failsworth, and he decided to go travelling, but not before spending a night with Maxine. Who'd have thought it, Curly and Maxine?
Not me.
He's had his pick of the women on the street.
Lothario.
I know, he is. He decided not to go travelling, though, because Anne Malone, who, remember, that is that other shop girl, said that she loved him.
In 1997, Anne gets a bit obsessive and Curly gets freaked out and rejects him. And then she accuses him of sexual harassment and reports him to Eric Furman. And when he's discovered shaking her...
Yeah, Curly is like, what have you done? Why are you accusing me of sexual... Why does everybody accuse me of sexual harassment?
He gets sacked after that. But he gets reinstated when Anne is found to be framing Samantha for shoplifting. So her reputation is tarnished somewhat.
Yes.
Angie Freeman returns and house swaps with Samantha and ends up unwittingly back with Curly.
Yeah, Angie Freeman was incredibly boring. 1998, Curly had to stand against Toya Battersby's protest against Furman's Freezers stocking Norwegian prawns.
Why would you stock Norwegian prawns in 1998?
He also had an image change that year. I think it was like the actor Kevin wanted to have an image change, and he like had his hair bleached blonde and sort of short and spiky, and he got these cool glasses because he'd always had these big glasses.
I think I remember hearing about that.
I preferred him kind of the hopeless, gangly kind of. You can't just go around changing your image. Lynn Perry, lip job.
Yeah.
Furman's that year was bought out by Freshcos. That's where Freshcos came from. Familiar. That's ages ago, isn't it? I remember that. And Curly's new boss turned out to be only Anne Malone.
Oh my gosh.
She tried to frame him for poisoning food in the shop, but his name was cleared when, and this is Anne's amazing death, she was frozen in the deep freezer at Freshcos.
With the Norwegian prawns? Or?
Yeah, probably. She was going around, sneaking around, trying to put inside this giant industrial freezer, trying to frame him. And then one of the security guard comes and finds the door open, slams her in, and then we later, I think it's the next episode or the end of the episode, I don't remember. It was hilarious. Like the door swing open and this frozen Anne sitting inside. It was like utterly hilarious and weird and a bit creepy at the same time, but it was obviously kind of
all the best deaths
partly
are
done
hilarious,
for laughs
weird
as well.
and creepy.
And I think a lot of people at the time were thinking, no, this has gone too far. This is not serious enough. One of the most memorable deaths ever, definitely. Now, Curly didn't realise that his name had been cleared. He'd already scarpered off somewhere to Australia, I think. But actually, at that point, Kevin Kennedy had to take a break from the show due to alcohol issues. So that was his little reason for his trip away. He came back in 1999, though. Now, 2000 millennium.
Yes.
Who
I
should
know this
arrive
one.
at Curly's doorstep but the wonderful Raquel. I think they kept it a secret from the press that she was going to come back. I can't remember because they had that two-hander, Corrie's first ever two-hander, where Raquel was there looking all kind of made up and lovely. She explained that he was a father to little Alice, who, when was she born? 1997, I think we saw, and is now living in France with Raquel and her older boyfriend Arnaud.
Good name.
Curly thought that Raquel had come back for him, but no.
She just wanted to be free. She wanted a divorce so that she could marry Arnaud. Arnaud.
Yeah, so he agreed, and it was such a sweet episode.
She was free from her gilded cage
to
fly.
It was lovely closure for the couple, I think.
And there were fireworks.
Yeah, and then Sarah Lancashire went off and did lots of other acting things. Later on in 2000, I think it was that summer that Curly went over to France to go and see his daughter Alice, but Raquel wasn't in those episodes then. But he also met Colette at a singles night. I think she'd had got mad at Freshco's because trolleys had been driven into a car or something, and then he ended up meeting her at this singles night. And he, as a result of this, he was stalked by a Sergeant Kavanagh, who I think had some history with this Colette.
This sounds bizarre.
Yeah, I don't remember this happening at all, but apparently this is how Emma came into it. During her investigation, she kind of brought down this evil Sergeant Kavanagh. But anyway, by the end of the year, Emma and Curly were married. Hooray, how exciting for him.
In 2001, Curly successfully stands as independent councillor. Meanwhile, Emma gives birth to son Ben with the help of Norris.
Maybe not exactly meanwhile. Yeah, Norris. When I was looking at Curly in information on Corriepedia and Wikipedia and that, everything stopped when it got to 2000, and I had to pick through episode guides and everything to find anything interesting, slightly interesting that Curly did.
This is why he was.
Yeah, and this totally shows why nothing really happened. I got 2002 to 2003. He was a stay-at-home dad, and he struggled to juggle council business with his home life, his baby looking after life. In 2003, Curly and Emma broke up after. Do you remember did we do Les Battersby last week as a character profile? I think we did because. Do you remember we said that this Mick beat up Les and Emma defended him, so Curly and her split up for that, and then she was recruited or transferred to Newcastle, and originally he wasn't going to go with her, but then he decided to, so he could stay with his family. And the last we saw of him, back of a cab. He kind of had a look round the street of a wistful, I've been a main character, so I get a ending scene where I get to look around my home for the last 20 years. But nowhere else for his character to go. In 2010, he did reappear in DVD format only in that Knight's Tale DVD, which we haven't seen. The only one we've seen, I think, is the Becky Romanian holiday, haven't we? But we did find out that Curly had split from Emma. And he was one of the directors of the company who owns Tatlock Towers, which is the little castle that this spin-off was set in. He has employed Reg Holdsworth, so he's now the boss, and he fires him during the course of the episode. Although at the end of the show, they drove off happily into the sunset together to go and concoct some madcap schemes. So
lovely,
happy ending for Reg and Curly. So that was it for him. I found out on Wikipedia, and I remember this happening in 1997. He was on Comic Relief. They did something it was Coronation Street University Challenge or something, and the characters there was 4 Coronation Street characters against. I don't know whether they were against another soap or whether they were against actual people. I don't know, but it was all scripted because Curly's answers to everything was Raquel. It was who's the Raquel in Only Fools and Horses? Was that? Do you watch that?
Yeah, that was...
there was an answer with that, and Curly was just getting more and more peed off that Raquel was the answer to all the questions when he was he'd been dumped by her.
I see.
That was the comedy. He said he would like to come back to the role a couple of times, and it's been rumoured on and off even since we've been doing the podcast. I think I can't blame him for wanting to go back. He's been doing lots of music stuff recently. My mum was talking about him being in We Will Rock You. Did you hear saying that?
No.
He was. Do you remember the barman in the Seven Seas of Rye pub who sings "These Are the Days of Our Lives"? He was that recently, apparently. You like "We Will Rock You"?
I don't remember all the characters in a musical I saw about 5 years ago.
Okay. Well, if we'd seen it like 3 years ago, we might have seen Kevin Kennedy. So that is Curly. So I found this quote from Kevin Kennedy on the character of Curly. "I think that the viewers could relate to this average guy and his search for a girlfriend and a chance to better himself. Everyone was willing him on to find happiness, but hard as he tried, he just seemed to lurch from one disaster to another. That reminded me of Eileen."
Eileen's always looking for a girlfriend.
She's
such an average guy. Yeah, I agree with you. It's basically the same thing, isn't it?
So do you think if Curly came back, either it'd be overkill, because now we'd have two people lurching from unsuccessful relationships, or maybe they'd lurch together?
No, please don't. Don't say anything like that, because if anyone listens... No one listens to us, obviously, but if anyone happened to and thought that germinated in their mind, and a year from now we're watching blooming Curly and Eileen, I will murder you.
Okay. I think, because we've always said about Eileen, or you've been the one saying it, that the street needs somebody to be unlucky in love and never really happy, but we kind of feel sorry for them when they get dumped yet again. And... yeah, that was just like what Curly was,
I just said I think Eileen would be as fine as she is.
Yeah, the character wouldn't be the same, would be ruined if she settled down with someone. So there we go. Curly used to be a favourite. Let us know what you think of Curly if you want to as feedback. Yeah, that is it for Character Profile.
There you go. Did you enjoy that lovely profile that we did, Michael?
I loved it. It's nice to re-listen to some of these things because we haven't heard them for it's almost 7 years old since we recorded this. We've been going a long time, this podcast. Anyway, I hope you all enjoyed listening to that, everybody. Either if you're a Curly fan from the past and you wanted to relive some of those old memories, or if you'd seen his face but didn't really know what on earth this is.
What on earth is he doing?
Yeah. So thank you for listening, everybody. I believe that YouTubers at this point in time say like and subscribe.
Yeah, like for more content and subscribe to be notified about things to do with YouTube and stuff.
We know all about YouTube now. We've been uploading things to it for a month.
Have we got any adverts on our videos yet?
We did not. Oh. We did not. I think we need to get a few more subscribers to that. Never mind. Anyway.
Like and subscribe.
Thanks for listening, everybody. Don't leave a comment
because you can't.
Look out if you're still listening to this at this point for our interview with Kevin Kennedy.
Look out.
Episode 405 of the podcast this weekend.
It's behind you. Goodbye.